Hi, John with eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at REDARC's Tow-Pro brake controllers on our 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. So why REDARC's Tow-Pro system? Well, for one, if you have a 7-way connector on the back, if you're going to be towing and you need something like a trailer with brakes, you need a system like this, especially if your vehicle isn't set up like that from the factory already. So REDARC has two different models. They've got the Tow-Pro Liberty. This is more for if you're going to be on the road driving, if your trailer is 2 axles, if you're only running a 12-volt system, which this is what most people are doing. However, since this is a Jeep, a lot of four-wheel drive going on, a lot of different alternative setups, we have the REDARC Tow-Pro Elite. This system is good for 12 or 24 volts. The Elite is also rated for a 3-axle trailer setup. No matter which system you choose, they're both going to install the same way. They both install cleanly into your dash with a user-friendly controller knob. Let's take a look at that now. So this is it. This is what the Tow-Pro looks like in the Jeep. You don't have this big bulky box like the old controllers that you remember in the past. All your controls are right here. You have the individual settings from 0 all the way up till 10. That's going to control the force on your brakes, whether or not you're applying the brakes with your feet or if you have to manually apply them brakes only on the trailer. It does have a manual override feature. And like I said, this system is progressive. If you are in stop-and-go traffic, it's going to know that, and it's not just going to be slamming the brakes on your trailer. If you do need to slam your brakes on, it's going to apply the brakes quicker back to the trailer. So if you're looking for the latest technology in brake controls and you want a nice clean install, whether you get the Elite or the Liberty, they're both going to install the same. Now it's a little complicated, I guess. There's a lot going on. We have some wires to run. We had a little bit of modification that we had to do to this Jeep, but if you're thinking that this is a good product for you and a good fit, stick around. We'll show you how to install it. Now, before we begin any of our installs with the Tow-Pro Liberties like that, there's a couple of things that we need to figure out. One, where are we going to put the button? And that's easy enough. On your vehicle, you just have to be thinking if you have enough room behind the dash and stuff like that. So we're going to put ours below the headlight switch right here. The second thing that we need is that we're going to need a brake input for this unit itself. And that is usually found on these, whether they have the tow package or not. You're going to find your brake signal up here in the kick panel. It's actually above where your foot goes. You're going to see a bigger wiring harness, and then you're going to see a small square harness. And on this, we have a green wire. And when we press that, you'll see my test light up, and that is going to be our brake signal for the unit. Now, knowing the location where the button's going to go and then knowing how we can pick up our brake signal is going to be huge for this install. I mean, those are two kind of daunting tasks that we needed to do since this Jeep doesn't have a tow package at all on it. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to go back to the back of it and we'll start our 7-pole wiring, and that's going to be the input at the back that we hook up our trailer to and everything, and we're going to run that all the way under the car, up to the engine bay, and connect everything up under the dash here. This is kind of a tough install for a 7-way connector back here. You can see there's nothing really to mount it to. We did get a universal bracket that we have available here at eTrailer, and kind of did a custom bend on it and brought it up with the trailer and then out. And then this bracket and your 7-way connector are included in your kit. And you're going to see 2 4-way connectors. There's one further back with all the rest of these wires, and there's one up front here. This one actually connects to the bracket. So you're going to have 7-way capability and 4-way flat capability with this connector. So we're going to mount this up before we get too far, and then we can start connecting wires. Mounting hardware is included. Just send the Phillips screw through, and there'll be a flat washer, a lock washer, and the nut on the back side. There'll be 4 of these holding this on. We'll snug these up. Now to begin making your connections back here, you're going to need a previously installed 4-pole wiring. Now, if you don't have one on your Jeep, we have videos on our website here that can show you how to install it. So this back connector here will just directly connect up with our 7-pole wiring. We can jam these together, and just to make sure they don't come apart, we can run zip ties. Just ran the zip tie down the middle, and don't tighten it too much because it could fold it over, but just like this, and that'll keep it from vibrating apart while you're going down the road. And your kit will come with zip ties, so once we do all these connections, you'll be able to clean these wires up and put them up. So the next wires that we're looking at, the white is going to be our ground. We're going to attach that to the frame. You're going to have power and your brake output. These are going to run up to the front of the vehicle, and we'll make our connections up there. This yellow wire here is if you have a reverse light or a reverse lockout on your trailer. Today we won't be using it, so we're just going to tie that back and not use it. Now you can see the kit comes with regular butt connectors. We're going to cut these off today and use a little bit higher quality butt connector that we have available here at eTrailer. These are heat shrink. They just do a little bit better job of keeping dirt and contamination out, and stops your wires from corroding as easily. And then this is the wire that comes in your kit. We're going to strip this back and make our connections. So I've stripped the insulation with a razor knife. You can see that the wire on the inside, it's black and white, and it's not going to match our black and blue that we have with the connector back here, but that's all right. We'll keep the black common color for us, and we can mark the white wire up in the front with some blue painter's tape, just so things don't get mixed up. This install isn't really hard. It's just easier if you stay organized, because it will be a lot of wires that you have, and sometimes you're going to lose them coming through firewalls and going from the back to the front. So the nicer you make everything and more organized that it is, the easier time you're going to have installing this. We're going to have a heat source, and we're going to shrink these down. Now we're underneath the vehicle facing towards the rear. You can see our hitch is mounted here. We're going to take our ground. We have the supplied sheet metal screw, and we're just going to ground it to the frame right here. This will be a decent routing for all the wires. And once this is hooked up, then we could take the zip ties and clean this up. When you're tidying up under here, you just want to make sure that stuff doesn't vibrate and move around too much, because that's where you're going to get most of your electrical problems with rubbing and chafing. So I bundled the wire up here, and tied everything together here. Nice and secure. So the only thing left to do now is going to be to run this, this wire up to the front of the vehicle, to the engine compartment. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'm going to show you the path that I'm going to take. We started at the back corner here. If you remember, we made our connections. I ran out and around this way. I made a loop, and I went over the transaxle here. You want to watch for anything sharp, anything moving, and anything hot while you're running this. So I went over all of these moving parts, dropped it down by the fuel tank here. And over here, you're going to find the factory loom is running alongside this rail here. I just mirrored that. They already had tabs on the side of this molded wire loom here. So I just ran zip ties all the way around here up to the front. And then I took 2 tabs off right here to expose underneath. And this hole right here is where the jump start studs are under the hood. We'll show you that in just a second. That's where we came out, up on top, under the engine compartment. Now, under the hood of our Cherokee, we pulled it up. It's close to the firewall here, and this is where we ended up. The battery for our Cherokee is actually under the passenger front seat, but they do have a jump point up here, and this is where we're going to be making all of our connections. Underneath this, you have a jump post. And so this is as good as a battery connection that we're going to get on this vehicle without having to mess with the seat or the interior or trying to get through to the inside. This is going to work for us right now. Now, your kit's going to come with 3 circuit breakers. The ones that we need for the kit are the 40 amp breaker and the 20 amp breaker. The 30 amp breaker is for applications that use triple axle trailers, and more than likely, I hope that they won't be towing with the Jeep Cherokee here. So, as far as locations on these go, remember these are going to be hot, and I don't like really sticking stuff out like this, where something could drape across, like such as changing the oil with a metal dipstick going across. So, in this instance on these Jeeps, this is a pretty easy and clean option. You can loosen this nut here, and then you're going to have 2 clips right here and here. Remove the molding on top. And this whole plastic piece will come out. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to mount these on the back side here. And probably like this. There's already battery power back here, so this is kind of like a nice insulated area that's tucked away, and this is going to be good for us. So I'll show you what I've done in just a second. So this is what it's going to look like from the front side. I just took 3 stainless steel screws, washers, and nuts, and then on the back side, this is what we're looking at here on the relays. Now we can just reinstall it. Since it's open on the back side, we'll be able to access everything we need to. So it just kind of fits down in here. These tabs lock in. Our next step is to carefully cut away the gray sheathing on our wire. If you're using a razor knife like this, just keep it pretty shallow and run down the middle. They actually have tools at home improvement stores that will cut this sheathing quickly and cleanly without damaging the wire underneath. Now we have our breakers marked 40 and 20, and we have our wires exposed. The white one we're going to keep intact for now. We will be cutting the black wire now, and it's going to go to the silver colored stud on the relay. On these relays, if the stud is copper colored, those go directly to your battery or your battery source. We can attach this and then tighten down the lock nut. It's a 3/8 inch size, so if you have a wrench or a socket, don't over tighten it, but it needs to be secure on there. We'll take the black wire that we cut earlier, put a ring terminal on it, we'll connect this to the 20 amp silver. This is going to be the main power for our control unit inside. Now, we took the rest of our black wire that we cut, And along with the white wire, I just ran them down the inside of this firewall cover here. This is a good place. There's a sealed up underneath, so we don't have to worry about the wires going anywhere. Just kind of push down with your fingers. And when we get over to this side, we're going to have another panel like we installed the relays on. It comes out the exact same way. I already just had it unbolted and everything, but it comes out the exact same way as that side because we have to run these two wires inside. We're going to have the ground and then the power wire. And then once we get our wires over on this side, we're going to need to get these two inside the firewall. And on the Jeeps here, there's no real good way to get inside. There's no grommets. The only grommet that was available is over on this side, and it has heat shielding because the exhaust system is right there and it gets really hot. Well, we don't want our wires over on this side. We do have enough room on the side of this brake booster, and you'll see a cable that comes out. We're going to drill about an inch above that. Now, when you're drilling into your firewall, you need to make sure both sides are clear, obviously. There's all sorts of expensive things that a drill bit would love to eat. Now, where I'm talking about in the driver's compartment here, it's going to be up and way to the left over here. It's up high of your brake pedal. So I'm about an inch above that hood latch cable, and I've got a 3/8 inch drill bit. Now, once your hole is drilled, I like to take some electrical tape and tape the ends up. And we're going to feed those through if, at least I'm going to try. If they don't want to feed through, you can always use a pull wire and feed it through the other side to come out. But since this is right here, I might be able to get this through the firewall here. So I ended up having to get a piece of spare air tubing. Honestly, this was harder than I expected because the inside of this has like a rubber insulation that I had to cut with my razor knife just to get it to come through. So this has been probably about 10 minutes or so that I've been wrestling with getting the wires through the firewall. I had to go back up there again so that I could stagger these wires. So you can see the pull wire, and I've got the white one here first. And down the line here, I taped the black one up. I have to feed it through the hole here. And here's the second one. When we taped the pull wire and the two wires together, of course, the hole that we drilled was too small to fit all of this through. So this was one way to alleviate it. You just tape one, and then down the line, tape the other one. So we'll pull these through right now. What I like to do for installs, since we're going to be cutting this wire, I like to know where I'm going to put this. And I found a pretty good spot, and it's going to be our lower left kick panel here. You can access that by flipping up the plate here. It just pops straight up. This plate will come off. And if you pull back the rubber molding, you can see that's going to loosen it up. Just pull out at the back. This is what it looks like underneath. And our Liberty is going to fit right here. So we're going to take the wires that we ran through. You can see we have plenty of wire. So we just want to make this kind of easy for us. We don't want to be clipping the wires way up high and then having to reach up there and get everything together. We just need enough of this wire to finish up the connections under the hood to the circuit breakers. So I think right here is going to be good. When mounting these, it's good to know that these can be mounted in any orientation. We're mounting it like this, but it could be mounted at an angles, upside down, every which way. These things are great. The only stipulation is that it has to be firmly attached to something. So we're going to be using just some sheet metal screws. Basically, they don't want you attaching it to, say, a harness or something that can wiggle. This thing is going to learn the way that you drive because it is progressive. It's going to apply the brakes progressively, so it needs to be mounted solidly to the vehicle so that it can pick that up. So we do have the parking brake over there. We want to be careful about how we run these wires. We don't want the wires to interfere with the parking brake. So I'm going to wire this up, tuck stuff away, and we'll make our connections. To make our connections under here, I've got 2 butt connectors that came in the kit. These are not heat shrink, but we're inside the cab here, and these will be perfectly fine. Now, what is not included with the kit are the 2 female spade connectors here. We have these available here at eTrailer. These are what we're going to use to get our brake input and our ground from our connector here. And these are just going to plug directly in because I don't want to cut in on the back side of this on the factory connector. This is just easier and cleaner for the installation. We'll start with this wire. Remember, this is our blue wire. This is our brake output from the controller. And then we'll go for the 12-volt power going to our controller. This is what's going to power the system in here. Now for the spade connectors here, this wire's a little bit thinner. So I'm going to cut these a little longer and double the wire over on itself. That'll give it a little bit better grip inside. Now on the back side of this connector, you're going to see the black wire. That's going to be the ground. And then this green wire with the white tracer, it's right next to it. That's going to be our brake input. It'll hook up just like that. So from here, we'll reattach these 2 connectors that were together and put them up there, and we'll zip tie our loose wires. We'll move on to the next step. Now when it comes to installing the controller knob, the knob is going to sit flush, so it's only going to stick out just a little bit. You're just going to have a knob, but behind it is what we're looking at. The knob is going to be just here, but we're going to have this much space behind it. So in theory, the owner would like it right here, and this is okay, but it's going to require a little bit of modification back behind this. As you can see, I've taken a lot of the dash apart here. We'll have to trim this plate here, and it's just plastic. It'll trim easy enough. We do need to be careful. We have an airbag down here. We're not going to be anywhere near it, but there's wires that we need to watch as we trim, and we have to drill a couple of holes in order to install the switch on here. So that's what we're going to end up doing, and we'll show you the final results. So for right now, I just have a smaller drill bit. The end result that we're going to need is going to be a 3/8 inch hole and then a smaller 1/8 inch hole right up on top of it. This I'm doing right now just as a pilot hole so that I know what area I'm going to need to trim out behind it. This is never not scary, drilling into your dash. So this is pretty much the end result. We still have to put the knob on, but I do have it hooked up, and I'll show you. This wasn't the easiest. It's a good location, I think, for it. But we had to do some light trimming back here and down on this as well. You can see the connection. It connects up just like a phone cable right here, and it simply just connects in like that. And we'll end up replacing the headlight switch, putting that back in. We ran the cable down the outside right here and down and around to the bottom side of the box. We'll hook that up as well. That's pretty much it. It's just going to be a matter of just putting the dash back together now and finishing up the connections under the hood. So when you're putting your knob on, you'll see numbers on here. This is going to be the intensity of your braking. So twist that thing all the way counterclockwise, and that way you can set it on 0. You see the knob up here, and this is going to clock it. Before you push it on all the way, you can double check and make sure, you know, that it's going to go to 10, and that's set on 0. Also make sure that it can push in. Sometimes these surfaces are too thick and you won't be able to do a manual override if you can't push it in. Now here's the other end of our cable from the knob, and I'm going to relocate this connector. It was right here. It just unhooked it, and it can ride right back here. You really don't even need to do anything. The panel has insulation on it that's going to keep it up there, and it'll ride just fine like that. This little tab goes out and connects up just like that. So that was really the last connection that we have to make in here. So we can put the inside back together all the way, and the only thing left for our install is to make the connections under the hood. All right, with everything finished in the cabin, we can come back under the hood and make our last 2 connections. This is the leftover primary wire that we had, the black. I'm going to make 2 connections. I'm just going to simply divide this in half. And in your kit, you're going to have ring terminals, the 2 smaller ones, 2 larger ones. These are going to go to the battery post right here. That's on the side of the fender. And then the 2 smaller ones, of course, are going to go to the copper circuit breakers. And these are the exact same, so it doesn't matter what goes where. So this is the jump terminal where we will be connecting these ends. We're going to do that last. That way we don't have to worry about something arcing over. And it's not a bad idea to have these longer like this, because if you ever do need to use these terminals to jump start anything, we want these other wires out of the way. We don't want them coming directly across, so we'll loop them down and come up so that everything's covered up. Set this one off to the side right now. We'll get the other one. We'll have these come out at a 90-degree angle. That way you can keep an eye on them whenever you pop your hood. You don't want these to come down and short out. They would bypass the circuit breaker part. In theory, they shouldn't move, but this way it's visually, you can see if there's a problem or if they're loose. They'll start drooping. To loosen this stud, it's 13 millimeter or 1/2 inch. Be very careful that you don't short out against something metal, since this is hot right now. Just kind of fan them out. And then snug this back down. Now once it's installed, the first time you start the Jeep here, if you are hooked up to a trailer, you're going to see this, and it's a series of flashing green to blue LED on the diode. This is letting you know that it's in active calibration mode. It hasn't learned the driving conditions yet, like stopping and starting and the forces that are connected with that. Now, if you're not hooked up to a trailer, you won't see these lights, but it is still in active calibration. It's just once you're hooked up, it illuminates the lights. Now, to take advantage of the automatic active calibration, all you have to do is drive. It's that easy. Just do a series of stops and starts. When it goes full blue on you, it's already calibrated. So once you see solid blue on the controller, remember this, you're only going to see this with a trailer hooked up, but once it's solid blue, it is already calibrated and you are ready to head down the road. So whether you're hitting the streets with the Tow-Pro Liberty or you're hitting the trails with the Tow-Pro Elite, that was a look at REDARC's Tow-Pro brake controllers on our 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee.